Okay, good morning and welcome to our latest webinar from the Coalition for a Strong Nebraska. We are so excited to have Jill with the Omaha Women's Fund, who is going to take us through social media advocacy. She's got a lot of great information in her slides and some thought-provoking questions for us to think about for discussion. So I will hand it over to Jill, who is with the Omaha Women's Fund. Thank you, Jill, for being here.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for joining us. I know it's a tough week with the holidays, but who doesn't love to talk about social media, right?
Right.
Right. So we'll just get started. Feel free to ask questions at any time. Joe's going to be looking at the chat and keeping me in line here. So a lot of people think that social media is free, and that's true. You can sign up for an account at any time, but it really takes people's time, resources, strategy of content, and some advertising dollars now as we're seeing algorithms change on different social media platforms. We really have to make an investment to make it worthwhile. We have to put that strategy behind it, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. There are four ways that people will think social media is a waste of time. One of these is that you're on too many social networks. My suggestion for how you could fix this is to look at what's driving traffic to your website. If that's where you are wanting people to take advocacy actions and reach you with emails or make phone calls, and that's where you're hosting the most of your information, make sure that you know what channels are pulling the most weight and focus on those. If that's Twitter, focus more energy and content toward Twitter. If that's Facebook, make the switch there and put more of your advertising dollars there. But know what's driving traffic to your website. Another reason that people will think that social media is a waste of time is that you're on the wrong channel. If you're trying to reach a certain audience on Snapchat and it's not doing your job, you have to know that you have to kind of cut and run, right? So know what channels you're on and what's working. I would suggest doing a social media audit, looking at, again, what's driving traffic to your website, where's your demographic, are they engaging with you, what type of content is being engaged with on the different platform, and do an audit of your various channels. Another way that social media can be a waste of time is that you're forgetting to be social. We are in this age where we just want to push out our content, but of course social media is social, right? And so we want to make sure that we're getting that engagement and we're getting people to share our content out so that we're reaching our fan base and people who care about the issues that we care about. Also, it can be a waste of time if you're tracking the wrong metrics. If you're only looking at how many fans or followers you have, I call those vanity metrics, then that's not really a good gauge of if you're having engaging content on your channels, right? Look at shares, look at some of, again, the traffic to your website, look at click-through rates on the links that you're sharing, and if you're driving traffic to where you're wanting to go. That's one of the ways that you could fix what you're doing. Social media could be super powerful if you're really harnessing that and using it in the correct way and strategizing about it. So how do you get started? I just talked about the social media audit, knowing what channels are working for you and what's pulling the weight and putting your energy through there. Before we even get into a legislative session, I would recommend putting a strategy together, and that would include what are your keywords for the issues that you care about? What issues are you all in on and you want to have social media going for it? And what issues are you supporting, and can you be retweeting other people who are working on those issues? Identifying that in advance will help you decide your content moving forward. Also utilize a content calendar. If you're like us at the Women's Fund, we have a lot of stuff happening outside of just what's going on at the session and policy-related work. So we need to know what's coming down the pipeline, what's coming up, what kind of appeals are we doing at the same time so that we're not sending out 2 emails in one day when we haven't for the last 2 weeks. We just have to have that all in a calendar format. You can use Google Docs or Excel, whatever helps you to keep that all straight. Also, repurpose content. If you have a really great email that's going out, take some of that content and repurpose it for social media. You could have 10 different tweets from one email, and so making sure that you're putting that content out there in different ways and reaching different audiences with whatever platform that they're utilizing. Also, set up monitoring. It's easy to create content and push it out, but is it working for you, and are you monitoring that? We do monthly check-ins with our analytics, make sure that we're posting at the times when people are interacting with our content. What type of content? Was it a video, image, or a link that worked better? How can we have more of that type of content the next month? So that's reviewing our analytics and then also analyzing them to determine what's working and what's not, and adjusting as we go. Of course, we have to be flexible during session because things can come up as they do, and so having all of that stuff in place beforehand allows you to be flexible and to adjust and to move on. Social media also changes all the time, as we've seen with different algorithms with social media, or now Twitter has a 280-character count. You have to be able to adjust and use those platforms appropriately and take advantage of them. Here are a few general platform guidelines of the types of content that works on those channels. So for Facebook, using videos, and again, really utilizing what's native to the platform. What that means, for somebody who doesn't know, is using their live video feed and uploading videos rather than posting YouTube links. They want you to work within their platform. They're very proud of what they've built, and so being able to utilize the features that they have within that platform will help boost your content being served into people's timelines as well. Blog posts, different article links are great for Facebook, and also curating content. So if you have a specific topic and you continue to post articles from third-party sources, from The Hill or CNN or Fox News, whatever you have that is curating content, make sure you're sharing that relevant content on Facebook as well. Twitter is the same for news, blog posts, and GIFs. I say GIFs. You can disagree with me if you'd like. Instagram, high-res photos, quotes work really well as an image there too if you have testimonials, or great resource from people who have given testimonial, and you can put their quotes on Instagram. That's great. Stories is another popular video format within Instagram. If you're at the Capitol one day, you could be posting stories throughout the day of what's happening with testimony, what facts are out there. You could use your stories to go live and say, this just happened and we're so proud of this bill just got passed, or what have you. LinkedIn is another platform with jobs, company news if you're hiring, of course, and then any professional content as it's related to issues that you're working on. I wanted to put this slide in here. We hear a lot about trust these days and fake news and where are you getting your content from. So I wanted to put this in there to really reiterate that it's not as much as the message that you're sharing, but the messenger and who it's coming from. And if we have advocates and influencers on social media and they're sharing our content, that's going to get more weight. It's going to be heavier for people who see the content. So how do we engage our influencers and our advocates so that they are sharing our content and doing so in a public way on social media? You can kind of see where the trust falls off there. So different friends and family, experts, companies that I use, or in our case, people who are advocates and believe in the work that we do. So you can see where that trust deficit falls up. So again, the messenger carries more weight than the message. So who's sharing our messages? How do we overcome those trust deficits? So utilize external experts and influencers. These are people that you want engaged, or maybe you have them engaged. It's really easy for us to, sometimes it's difficult, but to find people to testify on issues we care about. This is the same format and way, only using social media to share their information. So how do we get those people to testify online that they care about this issue and that we should care about it too, as friends and family of them on social media? So get people from outside your organization, not just your employees, but are there other influencers that care about this issue as well? And can you give them some talking points, give them some social media images that you're sharing as well, but they're sharing? Give them links to articles that are relevant to the issues that you care about as well, and ask them to share it. Sometimes it's as simple as asking them to share it on social media in one of your email blasts. Curate content and push this to the audience. So this would be news stories, editorials, letters to the editors, blogs. Again, the type of issues that we're working on, if there are other third-party sources sharing that information, it's going to carry some more weight that it's not just always coming from us. We're not the only people that care about this issue. There are other people who are talking about it, and here's some education, and here's some research maybe in those articles that would be relevant to share as well. We also want to inspire influencers to share our content, but from a more trustworthy source. So do we have a letter to the editor in the World Herald that we want shared via social media from other people? As you know, when you see on social media somebody shares an article, you're more likely to look at it, and the more shares you have of an article, the more reach it's going to have within the platform. Check my notes here. Yeah. So here's a look. The lower trust would be employees, ambassadors, your own accounts. You're going to have higher trust of your message coming from external experts, influencers, and prospects. So I want to just put that in there to show that, again, it's the message that if you have relevant and really good messages, that's going to get shared as well, but who are you reaching out and what influencers do you have that are sharing their messages as well? Looking at specific social posts and what you put on social media, you have to be timely. Obviously, things move fast when we're in session, but timely also means that you can't let your pages go dark during when we're out of session. So end of May, June, through this time of year, you cannot be not sharing anything, right? You have to make sure that your content is going all the time. Include action steps in your social media posts. What do you want people to do, and why do you want them to care about the issue? That's super important. If you have information out there, you have a bill, or you need them to make a phone call, you have to ask and tell them, call or email or tweet or whatever the call to action is. Make sure that you're including that in your post as well. Use relevant hashtags and tags, so tagging a senator in a tweet or Facebook post, using hashtags on Instagram and Twitter, not on Facebook, making sure that if it's hashtag Stop the Debt Trap, that you're using that on posts related to payday lending. Feature images and video. As we all know, that type of content is shared and viewed more in feeds, and so making sure that you have some images and videos to share. There are a lot of different video options. I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next slide, some ideas for that. Engage with others. Again, not only just putting your content out there, but are you sharing other people's content? Are you retweeting people who are talking about similar issues? Are you liking posts? Are you searching Twitter to see if anybody's talking about an issue that you have in session right now, and are you engaging with that content? Are you correcting people if they have the wrong fact or figure? Making sure that you have that engagement piece in there as well. And then cross-promote content on channels, but tweet each platform individually. What I mean by this is don't set something to post this exact same message on Twitter and Facebook. And I say that because you have different audiences on both platforms, and if you're putting hashtags on Facebook because it was something you scheduled in Twitter to cross-post to Facebook, that just doesn't make sense. And if you're posting on Facebook and then to Twitter and it has that link to Facebook, but somebody doesn't have a Facebook account, then they're not getting the full information. So you really have to treat each channel individually and treat those sets of audiences differently. You'll know who's on those channels by looking at your analytics, but it's really just because there's different audiences on both, and the platforms have their own different rules, and playing within those rules helps you gain favor by Facebook. Again, if you're utilizing some of theirs, like you're checking into places and you're using their emotions and you're using their video formats live and native into the platform, you're going to have better engagement on your channels. And then utilize paid social to increase engagement. As we all know, it's pay to play on these platforms these days, and so even a little bit of paid social goes a long way. You can target by zip codes on Facebook. You can upload your email lists and target them on Facebook, which is really cool. Making sure that if you have a specific district that you need to move and activate, you can target them by your messages. And so a little bit of paid social goes a long way. Sorry.
Jill, do you have a recommendation on a little bit of paid media, how much you might recommend someone? Is it $10? Is it $50? Do you have a recommendation to share?
Yeah, I think you could do either of those. I think it depends on how many people you want to reach, how quickly you want to activate them. It's one of those trial and error things of seeing what works for you and knowing what like looking at your analytics and analyzing them. If you did $50 and you reached way more people than you need to, scale it back a little bit or start small and scale up depending on what you need. If you need a quick push for the next couple of hours, you could always schedule it for $50, but then if the time expires, you can pause it and you'll only get charged for what worked within that time. So again, I think it's one of those things where you have to try what works for you and analyze your analytics so that you know what is working. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So here's some types of advocacy posts. Articles, of course, knowing what issues and what's being covered on a national level and even locally. If you placed some of those articles or if you know the articles are coming out on taxes and you see a bunch of ones that how tax cuts will affect women, for instance, we saw articles about that throughout. And so sharing those articles with your audience so that they know how this issue affects me and the people that I care about. Action alerts with strong CTA's call to actions, making sure that we need you to move now, we need you to call now, and putting those call to actions and being very obvious about what you're asking people to do. It's another type of post. Blog posts, and so sharing links to more information within each post, social media post. You want to be very concise and scannable text. People want to read headlines, right? Even though Twitter, again, extended their character count, people like the short tweets because it's headline and it's succinct and you get the message. It's very clear. And so in your social posts, you can be very short, but in blog posts, you can do long form and include more information and more links. And so making sure that you're linking out to your blog content and your website content as well. Facts or infographics. I have some examples of how we've used facts in the past that I'll show you in just a minute. But people, again, they want to know how many people are affected by this issue. What's the change going to be? What are the numbers behind this bill? Interviews, video form, or articles, those are really great. And then videos or images. I looked this up, 8 billion Facebook video views a day, and it has 9 times the type of engagement. So again, utilizing the native platforms in Facebook. If you're at the Capitol going live on Facebook to give an update of what happened rather than just doing a post about this bill just passed or we're seeing this and we need you to call now. Sometimes if you just pull up Facebook Live and get on real quick and say, hey, we need you, and do an appeal with a call to action, that's going to have more engagement and be more real to see a person behind the message as well. Also the testimonials, if somebody does go to testify for you at the Capitol and you want them to pull up Facebook Live if they feel comfortable doing that, you could give a short testimony, and what people would hear on the floor, they could hear through Facebook or another platform as well. So here's some sample posts. Here's some articles. These 2 articles, again, were shared outside of session time. So one was in November and one was in June. And so how are you sharing information about the issues that you care about? Just again, it's not always about your content, but you have more credibility through these third-party sources. Facts, this is a facts post. We had a sex trafficking research report out last February, which coordinated really well with LB 289, and these 2 posts are in our top 6 best organic Facebook posts ever, and they're simple facts. It's the same research shared 2 different ways. One has a lot of content and one has a little bit with a link to more of the research, but one had 11 shares. Oh no, sorry. One had 64 shares and one had 106 shares, and that made it reach more people, and so we're educating more people about the research and the issue at hand, and so that's why these did so well. We're really trying to do more facts so that people understand the background and what's happening on these issues. Do one more. I've mentioned this a couple of times. Tweets are now 280, and I say this to kind of prompt you to know what's possible within each platform so that you can utilize it to your advantage. I really didn't find a lot of sample posts, so that's why I kind of have this funny one over here on the right side of the screen. But on the left, NPR did, like, here's the issues of the bill and here's the things that you need to know. You could do it if you're using talking points for calling a senator. Here are the 3 talking points that we want you to get through, or this is why this bill matters, or this is why this bill could affect people in Nebraska, and utilizing that more space in that way. The other one's just funny. So paid social we talked a little bit about. Again, it's changing so much that if you have 100 fans and nobody's engaging with your Facebook fans, then, or with your content on Facebook, then they're never going to see your content in their feed. So 6.5% of fans will see your posts unless it's promoted. So your content has to be relevant and it has to have a little bit of boost. Not every time do you have to put money behind it. If you have super engaging content, it's super relevant, then it's going to show up in your feed. The more that people engage with it, the more it's going to show up in their feed. So be timely, be real, and be human. Talk to them in a way that you would talk to your coworker or your mom and explain a bill, or your best friend or your circle, making sure that you're talking to them in a really relevant and human way. Of course, what would a good social media webinar be without some tools? These are a few that we've utilized in the past or that I've personally used. Nuzzle is a tool for listening and kind of content curation. Anybody on your Facebook and Twitter feed, if you have more than 2 or 3 people share an article, it'll show up in Nuzzle. And so that's a good way to know what people are talking about if you're not always glued to social media. Hootsuite is good for scheduling and monitoring. There is a small fee with it. I think it's like $9.99 a month, $9.99. You can also use Facebook for scheduling, and then TweetDeck as well. Facebook Insights is good for audience, looking at your audience, looking at your metrics. There's a new one for Twitter called Union Metrics that they're promoting as well that helps you give highlights, what worked last month, what didn't, what's going on with your audience. Hashtagify Me is another one that if you do hashtagify.me, you can put in hashtags. If you're thinking about a hashtag for a specific topic, you can search it to see if anybody else is talking about it. Are they talking about it in relevant context? Or do I want to look for something else? That's just a way to source hashtags. And then Triangulate is one where you could find possible influencers. If there are 2 people who are talking about a topic, say your CEO and somebody else, if you put both of their Twitter handles in Triangulate, you can find other relevant influencers that are also talking about that topic or similar topics that those 2 people talk about. So it's one of those good ways to find influencers when we're talking about gaining trust. Quick reminder, I would be amiss if I didn't say that you can't talk about partisan politic activities if you are a 501c3 like the Women's Fund, so don't favor candidates or political parties, just focus on the issues. PSA there. And then a few do's and don'ts. I'm going to start with the don'ts. Again, don't only post during the legislative session. If you go dark in the summer and in the fall, people aren't going to care about you and they might not even see your content come session time again. Don't automatically cross-post on multiple channels. I talked about this a little bit before, of just making sure that you're being relevant on the platform so that that audience respects your content and engages with it. Don't skip the engagement. Again, social media is social, so making sure that you're asking questions, engaging with people, sharing their content, liking it. Don't only post when you want advocates to take action. Make sure that you're utilizing the platforms for education as well, and not just when you want something out of people. And don't forget to monitor your channels for engagement opportunities. Again, using the Twitter search function to see if anybody's talking about an issue in a way that they're not tagging you or using your hashtag. Look for some of that organic content and engage with them. You might find some new influencers that way. A few do's: do keep your online advocates updated, again, making sure that you're sharing content with them about what's happening, and also thanking them. Don't forget to thank them after the session's over or a bill has passed, or even after a bill has been heard and you know that there were a lot of phone calls from your advocates, making sure that you're thanking them for that, taking that action. Do share online news articles and third-party sources. Do promote your online channels to your circle, making sure that you have social icons on your website and in your emails, letting people know that you are on these channels so that they can engage with you. Do tweet, retweet, and share other community partners' content. We are all in this together. Multiple organizations are working on some of the similar topics. You don't have to have all the content all the time. Make sure that you're engaging and sharing other people's content as well. I already said this, but thank advocates for votes and session communications. Do make sure that you're being human. Again, talk in a very simplistic way. There are different reports out there about writing for a third grade level on social media, making sure that it's very easy for people to understand what's happening and why this issue is affecting them. Focusing on the why they should care, why they should take action is really relevant. And do follow us. Follow the Women's Fund. We're on Facebook and Twitter, and we would love to have you engage with us on those platforms. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Jill, for leading us through that great information. If you have a question, go ahead and type it into the chat box, which is in the bottom right-hand section of your screen. If you'd like to ask a question verbally, you can just go to the top of your screen. There is a menu at the top, and there's a person that looks like she is raising her hand, and it's just a drop down, so you can click raise your hand. We can unmute you, and you can ask a question verbally. We will provide the slides to all of the participants on the webinar today. We are also recording it, so we will put the recording up on the Strong Nebraska YouTube page, so there'll be a link to that as well. So are there any questions? Okay, Jill, you talked a little bit about your recommendation that you should not schedule posts for social media. Can you elaborate as to why we shouldn't schedule them?
Yeah, my recommendation is not to schedule across platforms. I'm all for scheduling. You can use Hootsuite, which again is a small fee. You can also use TweetDeck for scheduling on Twitter, and then Facebook you can schedule within the platform. Instagram's a little bit more tricky. My suggestion with not cross-scheduling or posting between platforms is just you have different audiences on Facebook and Twitter, and knowing who those audiences are and utilizing the features within each platform helps with your content relevancy, and that helps it get shared into your feeds, and it helps with engagement, which in turn helps with your end goal of having people engage with the issues that you care about. So treating each platform individually, that doesn't mean that you have to have different content. It can be the same content, but just revised a little bit for each audience. Yeah, good question.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I have another one. Do you have a recommendation in terms of how many social media sites an organization should be a part of? I think a lot of people have jumped on with Twitter and with Facebook, but now you've got Instagram and you've got Snapchat, and so does it make sense to start over and jump on a new platform, or should you just try to build engagement on the existing platforms that you're on?
Yeah, the best thing to do is know what works for you and conduct a social media audit. Look at each page, look at your followers, look at the demographics, look at what's driving traffic to your website, look at what type of engagement rates you have, what shares do you have. If you know this, if your Twitter feed, you have 0 engagement, why are you there? It's not necessarily that you want to go dark, but you just may want to focus less on. If you have pages that are flailing and not doing so well, I would not recommend adding another platform, because again, it's free to sign up, but it takes time, it takes resources, You need somebody with graphic support who can provide graphics in the various formats that you need for the different channels so that it looks right on those pages. And so conduct an audit, look at what's working for you, and really build that up before you're ready to engage and add on a new platform. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. Well, if you all have other questions, I will send out Jill's contact information is also there on your screen. She's the PR and social media manager for the Women's Fund of Omaha. So we would like to thank her so much for her time with us today. I will put up the slide we have 2 webinars left next week. Sorry, that is our intro slide. Next week we have testifying in committee with James Goddard from Nebraska Appleseed, and then we'll finish out our fall webinar series with letters to the editor and op-eds with Tyler Richards from the ACLU of Nebraska. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.